Hello, my beautiful listeners. You are tuned in to the Natural VBAC podcast series. Today on the podcast, we are interviewing an amazing birth professional who had a silent uterine rupture, guys. I know you're probably thinking, what is a silent uterine rupture? Maybe you've heard about a silent uterine rupture before, but today we are definitely going to discuss this. And we're going to discuss what you should look out for if you are planning a VBAC and why you shouldn't focus too much on having a uterine rupture. A uterine rupture is a topic many professionals and mothers fear, and it's a topic many women don't have the complete facts about. When I was pregnant after my cesareans, I was completely petrified. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be pregnant because I'm going to have a uterine rupture. And it's going to happen to me. I know I put a lot of stress on my family because I became over introvert, and I would superimpose on information to help me believe I was okay. I also remember during my first VBAC after 2 cesarean, I was strapped in a continuous fetal monitor, and I was completely zoned out, not on my pregnancy, but into my baby's heart rate. I kept asking, is his heartbeat okay? Has it become slower? And I was petrified, literally, of having a uterine rupture. And I thought every second was me having a uterine rupture. During my 4th labor, I started bleeding. Actually, thinking back to it, I had a lot of blood loss. But I was, still thinking maybe it's not a uterine rupture because my midwife kept telling me it's not. And the blood loss that I had, it was a mixture of blood and mucus. Now, something VBAC mothers are not told is you may have a bloody show if you've had a previous cesarean section. And this is okay, but you should always check out any suspicious blood loss to your physician to rule out any emergencies. When a mother becomes pregnant after a cesarean, the first thing she may be bombarded with, even before she is congratulated, is, your scar may rupture, or you're at risk of you and your baby dying. And whilst this can be a reality, and it's many women's realities, it's not the reality for many women also. A uterine rupture doesn't always cause the mother and baby to die, and it's not a common occurrence. Women have about an 80% or more chance of having a successful VBAC. And the birth professionals usually get the baby out before anything catastrophic occurs. Now, I just want to quickly put this out there. A uterine rupture is very, very, very rare. And about 6% of uterine ruptures are catastrophic or complete. Now, I hope that helps you to contextualize uterine ruptures a bit, but it's about that time. I'm sure you're wondering, come on, we need to hear the speaker. So I'm going to open up the space for our amazing mum and birth worker to tell you her story. Over to you, Gabriella. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I apologize in advance if my children make too much noise.
That's okay.
Yes.
So, you had a uterine rupture and you've got 2 pregnancies. So can you just tell us from your first pregnancy how that went?
Sure. So I was pregnant in 2012 with my first, and I reached 40 weeks and nothing was happening. And I had talked to my doctor that we will go past 10 days. So we went past 10 days and did the typical things to try to induce naturally. And the day that I was scheduled to go onto my induction, that's the day I went into labor. And for some reason, my body just could not open past 3 centimeters. I couldn't dilate past that. And there, of course, now knowing what I know, it's I was on my back. I was really scared about everything that was happening. I wasn't really, hospitals were not the, so hospitals were scary to me. And I back then I lived in Qatar. And so in Qatar, there's no options for birth centers or home births. So my option was only to go to the hospital. So anyway, we go into, when I was in labor for a long time. And then my water broke and it was full of meconium. And then we started monitoring the baby's heart rate. And the baby's heart rate apparently was dipping. And so we ended up going for a cesarean. And it was just very rush. And it was I think that it was really emergency. Sometimes you oh, was it really necessary? But now thinking about it, how everything happened, is well, we don't have to. Sometimes even when I work with parents now, it's oh yeah, we'll wait for this and we'll wait for that. I'm like, well, if it's an emergency, then why are we waiting? Like, just get this done. Because that's what happened to me when it was an emergency. It's like we don't have any time. So I
Yeah.
actually had a general anesthesia, and I was put asleep. And when I woke up, I had my baby, and it was very soul crushing to wake up. Although I was happy that I was having my baby, but
Yeah.
the whole thing was just very traumatic,
It
to
can be
say the
kind of
least.
surreal, isn't it? Like, because you go through your whole labor and stuff, and then you just you're put to sleep because you know that there's something's happening, and it might be an emergency, and then you wake up to this baby, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like there's a big gap in my knowledge, there's a big gap in my experience. Like I need to
Yes.
give that, yeah.
It was like, what just happened? But yeah, waking up and then trying to grasp about what happened. Like, this is the reality now. I have a baby, but also emotionally I was not okay. I realize now that I was like, I should have seen someone. I should have had better care after, in the emotional well-being sense. Like, okay, I needed to talk to someone about what was happening, because I was very into, like, it's either natural birth. If it's not natural, if it's not a vaginal birth, then I'm a failure. And that's the
Yeah.
story that I kept telling myself. It was really soul crushing. But then, fast forward to 2000, that was 2012. When I was in 2015, I got pregnant with my second. And it was a long journey for that, because there was a lot of trauma for me and my husband. And then just trying to figure out what was the best way of doing this. And the first thing, like when you were describing, is like the first thing you do is like, okay, do I want to do a VBAC or do I want to go to a cesarean? You have to face that decision, because the VBAC, I'm not saying that the cesarean is the easy way out, no,
Yeah.
but then the VBAC is a journey. It's like an uphill journey, like uphill thing. Like, it's real. Everybody has their own opinions about what you should do and what is best for you and for your baby, even though
Yeah.
they're not the ones carrying the baby.
A lot of conflicting stories and evidences, and it's just so it's just confusing. The whole thing is confusing.
Yeah, very, very, very much confusing. But if you wanted to, I can talk about what happened during the birth. For my second one, I had a very different approach to what I was, how I prepare. I prepare with hypnobirthing anyway. I used to, I prepare with hypnobirthing with the first. And the only thing available here at the time where I lived, now I lived in Dubai. Now I'm living in Dubai now. And when my second baby was born, he was born here. And so I did the hypnobirthing, and I used a lot of the things from hypnobirthing, but certain things didn't make sense to me. For example, a lot of things about, like, don't focus on the cesarean, don't even watch videos about cesareans, were not. I think that that's what got me in trouble the first time. I was so scared of cesareans, C-sections, that I said, I don't want to watch a video. I don't want to put that in my head. But then I healed a lot when I watched a lot of videos about cesareans and how it was, because like you said, there was a gap. I don't like, I had a cesarean, but I don't know what happened through it. I'm like, how did, and I was like, what if I have another cesarean? I want to know what's going to happen to me, because I felt that that was the most scary, like not knowing what was happening, and not even viewing these videos made it so scary and unknown that it made it like a mystery and like a prohibited, or. So I wanted it to be like, I wanted to have that. I want to have this VBAC, but I don't want to be so attached to it, because I was so attached to the idea of having a vaginal birth first that it just wasn't serving me at the end. It was just very harmful to me at the end. I
Yeah.
mean, at least emotionally wasn't healthy, a healthy space. So now I was like, okay, I'm gonna work on this, and I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna prepare the best way I can, in many ways, emotionally, physically, either with nutrition and acupuncture, whatever it is. But at the same time, I want to know, I want to be okay with whatever happens. And
Yeah.
I know, and then I knew all the things that you just mentioned, like the ruptures and the fetal monitoring. And I think that that's one of the scariest things for me, because all I kept thinking is like, I don't want to be on the bed, because I think that being on the bed and I had a lot, my baby was posterior, so I had a lot of back labor.
Yeah.
And that was the most horrible thing. The cesarean was nothing. The pain of that was like unbearable. So I had a lot of discussions with my doctors about it, and they were not really happy when I said I don't want to have the continuous fetal monitoring. But I was okay. I'm like, this is what I have. I'll work through it. I'm going to make it happen. So, so when I was in labor, I'm going to start from the beginning. I started getting contractions like at 12 a.m. And I woke up and I was trying to figure it out. Okay, what's going to happen? And is this a real labor or not? And it ended up being like long. And then around like 4 a.m., I called a friend who lives in the States, and we were chatting, and she noticed that I was in labor. She's like, "You're in labor." I was like, "You should go to the hospital." I was like, "Okay, sure, I'll go to the hospital." Called the doula, and my doula didn't. For some reason, she never picked up her phone.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, I don't blame her. I think that sometimes things are meant to be, And sometimes I felt like, oh my God, like she's the one that's going to help me have this baby, and then you end up with like, oh my gosh, she's not going to come. And then I had to call a friend, which actually ended up being amazing because she has 4 kids, and she ended up being my doula with my husband. And my husband said something really wise. I think he said, whoever's meant to be there will be there. So
I fully agree with that as well. He's right. And with the doula not, being there, literally, like I think, I mean, I'm a doula as well, and as well as so many other different things. But I think mums put so much trust in other people, and they fail to trust in themselves. So it's like, oh my God, my doula's not going to be there now. I'm stuck. I can't do it no more. Or, oh my God,
yeah,
this is not there. I'm stuck. I can't do it anymore. And it's not, it's the complete opposite. Center yourself, believe in yourself. You can do it. It's you doing it. Nobody else is doing it for you. The only thing your doula is going to be doing is giving you, emotional and sometimes even physical support. But it's you going through it. It's you that has to condition your mind to go through it. It's you that has to, prepare your body to go through it as well. So it's really shocking when I hear sometimes mums say, you know what, oh my God, if I can't find a doula, then I can't do this anymore. And I'm just like, you really can. I think we underestimate how powerful we are.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the. I'm glad that you say this because as doulas, we have to do a better, like not a better job, but we need to say this to the moms. Like, yeah, for whatever reason, you never know, especially now with the COVID-19 situation. It's
Oh
like,
God,
well,
yeah.
so it's like it's all on you. Like and I had a friend that also said that to me before. I even had to. This is like a side note. I even had to change my doctors at 33 weeks. Like I had a lot. Like, and you know how hard it is to like find a doctor that is like VBAC, like will let quote unquote allow you to VBAC. Here in Dubai, is like there's like 5. So once the best doctor was out the window, it's like, okay, so now who is gonna do this? And I remember a friend of mine saying, like, it doesn't matter. Like, you are the one giving birth to this baby. It doesn't like she's like, it does like what you were saying. It's like, you can do this. Like, doula, nor doula, clinic, hospital, whatever, you can do this. So I think that when he said that, I felt like, okay, I'm going to call this friend. And then she picks up, I'm going to tell her that I'm in labor. And then she can go to the hospital, she can meet me. And to be fair with my doula, she had fallen asleep. And then once she arrived to the hospital, when we had talked, they said she was going to come home and help me through the contractions at home. Because remember, I was really scared of hospitals, right?
Yeah.
So she was supposed to be there, but then she ended up going to the hospital. But my friend had already arrived, and they had this rule: it's like only one person. And then I was like, I don't want to let go of my friend because I trust my friend now. Yeah. It's not that I didn't trust the doula; it's just that I was like, you're in another. I was like in another world. It's like no, no, no. So just to be fair to her, because she's amazing, and I'm still in contact with her, and I just feel like that's what ended up happening. It's just a fact. And then I was there, and to my surprise, my doctor was not there. She was just on call. Like the midwives would call back and forth and tell them, okay, we have the lady with the VBAC, da da da, and they did the fetal monitoring, and then I was like prepared for like as long as I'm not in the bed, I can handle the monitoring like on the side on the bowl or whatever.
Yeah.
But then she ended up saying, the doctor says that you can go on the pool. You cannot give birth on the pool, but you can be on the pool and we'll be monitoring you there. And that was amazing because the pool was just such a relief. And I was there for a while. And I had also told the midwife, like, I don't want to know how many centimeters I'm in once I come into the dilated I am once I go into, like, when she checked me, and she didn't tell me. And then when she checked me, I got to the hospital like at 7 a.m. And then she checked me like around 1. And then her face was like lighting up. It's like, oh my God, like, and I'm like, what happens? Like, you are, I don't know, I think she said you're 6 centimeters. I was like, oh my God, it's like, that's good. And I was like, oh my God, that's good. And then I asked her, it's like, how much did I arrived with? It's like, you were 1 centimeter. And I was like, oh my God, like in that short amount of time I had dilated. And before, for my first, I arrived at 1 centimeter, and I never could pass 3 centimeters. So to me, it was like, wow, this is really happening. Like, this was amazing. Like, so then they put me back in the water. I was in the water for a while, and then at 4, they got me out, and they're like, well, maybe we should check you. And I was still 6 centimeters. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck in 6 centimeters. This is gonna be horrible. This is gonna be terrible. And then she's like, well, maybe we can break your water so maybe the baby can come down, because he seems like he's really high up still. And when they break the water, there's meconium, but it wasn't as bad as the first baby. So I was like, okay. And it's interesting to me that things that happened in my first birth repeated themselves in the second birth. Also, for my first birth, the doula that I was assigned to didn't make it either. She decided to go home, and then I had another doula, like her backup came.
Oh, wow.
So it's like the same kind of pattern. Like, if you see like the 1 centimeter, the doula not showing up, and then the meconium in the water, and I sometimes I think, like, when we are preparing for VBAC, we're like, oh, this time it's gonna be different. It's gonna be different. But the emotional work that I did was basically, even if, and I had someone really tell me this, like, even if it's the same birth, you're a different person. Like, you can handle this, you're a different person, and you can only choose how you feel about these things. Like, you can choose how you feel about it.
That's really good. Did they detect the baby's heart decelerating with the meconium?
Yeah, no, she told me, it's like, the baby's fine. The baby's fine. Don't worry, because that's the first thing that you're like, oh my God, the meconium again, the story with the baby getting rushed. And she's like, don't worry, your baby's fine. And by then they just kept monitoring me. And then when they got me out of the water, like around 4 p.m., I was on the bed, but I wasn't on my back, because that was something that I was really specific to. It's like, I don't want to be on my back, because and then my thing is like, I just kept feeling like a lot of back labor. And it's like, are we sure that this baby's in the right position? Can we do something to move the baby? And they were like, the baby's in the right position. It's just that I have back labor. Even like my back it's just like unbearable, when I'm giving birth. So, but the baby was fine. So I was calm, and I was like, on all fours on the bed, like hugging the back of the bed. And and then they gave me gas and air, because they said that it was too long. Like, I was in labor since 12, and now it was like probably 4 p.m. So it's a lot of hours. 16 hours had passed, and I hadn't eaten, I hadn't had breakfast. I didn't want to drink anything. I was just like, don't bother me, don't touch me. I don't want to know anything. And then when things started getting very interesting, when my midwife had to leave, like around 7, and she checked me before. She's like, I want to check one more time. And then she's like, yeah, maybe 6.5, but that's it. I was like, oh man. And now it's 6. And it's like, oh, how much longer do I have to go through this? And then the interesting thing was that then another midwife came, and then she checked. She's like, well, you're probably 7. And then the recommendation was get an epidural, because we don't know how long this is going to take. You need to rest. And I was like, I was really tired. It's like, okay, give me the epidural. And then they give me the epidural, and the epidural doesn't work. And that's when I really lost it. It was like probably 8 p.m.
Complete frustration.
Huh?
Complete frustration.
Now looking back, and now because I'm a doula, I'm trying to become a doula. Now I know I was in transition, and I'm like, I lost it because I really wanted to rest. I was really tired. By then, now it was like probably 9 p.m.
Wow.
And I had been in labor for a long time. It has 21 hours, I suppose. And I was like, okay, I just want this to be over. Please just let it be over. And then if I've had my doula, she would have told me you're going through transition, but they kept checking. And once I told them, like, I can feel everything, they're like, oh, well. And then they start looking, it's like, oh, I see there's a head. I see that. I think that you're like fully dilated. And I'm like, you told me like an hour ago that I was 7 centimeters. Like, and now you say that I'm fully dilated. And I think that I think in my head, in between that, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna rest. And that allowed me to calm myself down. I don't know, and just fully dilate. And then they were calling the doctor. The doctor came and they kept asking me, if you feel any pain, and they kept because I was a VBAC, I was on fetal monitoring all the time. Now they were really serious into like I was on my back because I had an epidural.
Yeah.
Even though the epidural, I could feel everything. So they had the belts on me, and they were monitoring the baby, and the baby looked fine. And to tell you the truth, at some point, I was doing a lot of grunting. Like, but they were saying, and I felt like with each grunt, I was trying to push a little.
Yeah.
Like I was following what my body was telling me to do. And they kept saying, don't push. No, no, no. It's not time to push. You're only 8 centimeters. But then they're like, oh, no, actually, you're 10. And I'm like, and I remember telling them, like, don't tell me, I even use a really bad words, don't tell me what to do because this is what I feel that I need to do. Like, why are you telling me? It's like, if I want to go to the bathroom, you're telling me, no, go to the bathroom. It's like, I can't hold it in. I need to go.
Yeah,
so I need to do this. So I said that out loud, and they would keep monitoring me. And then at some point, my doctor hadn't arrived, and at some point I said, I was really desperate. And I said, listen, I'm done. Call my doctor if she needs to do a cesarean, but I'm done. Like, it's 22 hours of this. I'm really done. And I need to see her because I'm paying to see this doctor. And I don't want to talk to any of you. I just want to talk to my doctor.
Yeah.
I was like, and then they was like, okay, we're going to tell her to come. So she was on her way because I was 10 centimeters already. So they were like, okay, now it's time to call her. But at that point, to tell you the truth, since we're talking about ruptures, at some point I did feel something like a sharp little pain around my scar, like a sharp little thing, but I don't know what was that. I was like, I always thought that if I had a rupture or something, it would show on the monitor. I was like, it's going to show on the monitor. It's going to show that the baby's not fine, and that's it. And but it was it wasn't like unbearable pain. It was just like, I don't know how to describe it. Not like a cramp. I don't know. Like a little knife was inside and someone was like picking on it, but very brief. And then it was gone. And that was it. So it's like, oh, maybe it was just a muscle or a ligament that was stretching. I don't know.
Yeah.
So going forward, the doctor came and she realized, because the interesting part is about the rupture. So I'm going to forward to the birth. So the birth was like, probably the doctor came, and since they knew that I was completely dilated, they're like, okay, so now what we're going to do is, I'm hearing my kids outside. That we're gonna do is like, since you can feel your legs, it's like, just stand up, and and I was able to stand up and walk and do my thing, and then I was trying to birth on the bed, but it just didn't work. So I stood up, and then I kneeled down, and I hugged my friend, the one that I had called and became my honorary doula, and 2 pushes, the baby was out. And I mean, that was it. Like, it's like, okay, let's do this and just push through. And then the baby was out. And then I think after they cut the umbilical cord and then they stopped pulsating, then my husband took the baby. And then, I had a little bit of a tear. So they were doing that. But there was no major bleeding or anything like that. There was nothing. They just had me on observation, and I was fine. I was completely fine. They said, you're okay, no problems. And that was it.
Wow.
And it was perfect. So that was the birth. But because it's a silent rupture, nobody knew what was happening. So I didn't know. And I wasn't having any more abnormal bleeding or anything like that. The only thing is that I did have a lot of big what is it called? Clots. But they were saying that I went to the hospital. It's like I just passed a huge clot, like probably bigger than a golf ball. And they said, no, it's normal, it's fine, don't worry about it, it's okay.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. I mean, if you think there's nothing to worry about, it's like, but then the bleeding started, the lochia started to disappear, and then it became orange, and then it became white, and it was gone. And by this time, a month had passed, and I had gone because of mastitis to my doctor, and my doctor said, I just had gone for mastitis. I think I was 3 weeks postpartum. And she looked at me and she said, well, these are the things that you need to take. And let's consider this your postpartum visit. So you're fine. Good luck. See you in whenever you want to have another baby. She never checked
Wow.
anything down there. Like that was, I love my doctor, and now I work with her sometimes but I thought that was like not cool at all. Not.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah, and then especially if it was a VBAC. But then in a week's time, I had an issue with, I felt at some point I was doing a lot of heavy lifting because of my son's birthday, my first son. And this sounds really dumb, but I was carrying a mattress, and I felt like something was falling down my vagina. And it was actually, as it called, a cystocele prolapse. So
Yeah.
it was like the bladder was not cool and it was falling down. So I had a prolapse, and I felt like there was something wrong, but I didn't. But my doctor had already told me to leave, so I went to another doctor. It's like, well, because here's like private medicine. So I went to another doctor and I pay, and she's like, "Did you get your 4 week check?" Like, well, she said I was fine. It's like, no, you need to have this, and that done. Like, and then she did a ultrasound actually. And that's when she said, "Oh, I see that you had a cesarean because you can see the scar." And then she was looking and she's like, "Oh, I see that you have a hematoma there." It's
Wow.
like you had a silent rupture. It's like you had a silent rupture. Like you were really lucky. Like then she starts scaring me. You could have died. Your baby could have
Oh Lord.
died. Your doctor's irresponsible. How could it be? This is why I never do VBACs. This is why. And then she called another doctor. Said, "Can you look at this? Look what this doctor did." And I was like,
Oh
it
wow.
made me feel really bad.
So did she
Like
say it was
I
a,
was irresponsible, huh?
did she say it was a rupture or a scar dehiscence? Uh,
She said you had a silent rupture.
oh
She
wow.
said UEC. She says now it's healing and you shouldn't get pregnant. And you need to take really good care of yourself. Uh, you need to take this. And I don't know what she gave me. What did she give me? I think she gave me. She said you need to take a pill so that you don't get pregnant because it's going to be very dangerous. You shouldn't have any more kids. Like really scary stuff that she told me. But then
Wow.
I'm like, then I was reading a lot of stuff, and I'm like, well, this maybe was just. Then she said you had a window, probably. Probably it was like, yeah, probably that. It's like it didn't really rupture. It was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
like you were saying. Hmm.
Oh, wow. So that's
She
why.
said a silent rupture, but I don't think it was that. I
Yeah.
don't think it ended up rupturing completely.
Wow. You see? Wow. So really, the hospital that you went to, they were really, really negligent, but they didn't give you the right checks.
They should have checked me after. They should have really checked me. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But they were really looking into the baby. I mean, the baby's heartbeat was fine. And at the end, I was fine. But I don't really know. Like, I don't really know. I don't really know. I felt worse after, to tell you the truth. When someone tells you, like, oh, the one thing that didn't want it to happen happened, but we're both fine. I mean, I was very lucky. But
No.
at the same time, I've heard that this happens. I mean, I've heard it again. I mean, you're an expert on this. Like, it happens a lot. Like,
Does
it's
it
like,
does.
how do we know that this didn't happen? How do we know that this doesn't happen?
Yeah. And you know what? This is not the first story that I've heard like this. Um,
Mm.
especially like in places like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. Like I've heard some really scary stories in Indonesia, even in Malaysia. in the UK, I've heard some super scary stories, and you're just like, oh my goodness. You know what? It's quite sad. When I gave birth to my second son via cesarean, was it my second? No, it was my first son via cesarean. I remember them wheeling me from the operating room to the ward, and
Mhm.
there was a lady when I was in labor at the same time, and her baby died, and it was via a uterine rupture as well.
Yeah.
I didn't know at that time because obviously, I mean, I wasn't a birth professional at that point, but I didn't know that that uterine ruptures was so that could happen like that, and it could happen to women who had cesareans. Because had I known that, I wouldn't have opted to have a cesarean. I wouldn't have opted to be induced. But this is what I'm saying about giving mums the right information. We have to give mums the right information, so
Yeah.
that you can make an informed decision. Had you known, that being on your back, it increases your risk of not being able to push your baby out and having an epidural and all the other stuff, you wouldn't have done that, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the
Mhm.
same with many mums, but unfortunately, um, I just feel like not a lot of care providers are holding their staff accountable for their actions.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And this is something
And
I'm working on. It's because it's driving me nuts. I'm getting so frustrated with all this. Like if I was to show you my email inbox, every
Mm.
day I get at least, and no less than this, 60 emails a day saying my provider's done this, my provider's done this, I was told this, I was told this, and you're just like, when is this going to stop? When are professionals going to be held accountable for their actions? And what I think only when they're accountable, like fully accountable for their actions, will we be able to make headway with change. You know, it's driving
Yeah.
me nuts. Nuts. Nuts.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that the worst thing for me, I mean, at the end of the day, the birth went okay. I was fine. They were taking the quote unquote the precautions. Like, do you have any pain on your shoulders? Do you feel this? Do you feel that? I felt something, but I don't know what I felt. Because I don't know what it feels like.
Mm,
I don't. Is it sometimes when I have a lot of moms saying like I have a pain here, like around my I don't know my hip flexors, and I'm like, well, maybe they're your ligaments, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, that pain is normal, but is it something else? I don't know. She
yeah,
doesn't know either. So what I'm thinking is like the worst thing that happened in that story, I think, is the fact that my doctor never checked me at 6 weeks.
yeah.
Like
That check
no
is really
interest.
important as well. That check is really important. The 6 week check is especially for a mum who's had a uterine rupture, or even a scar dehiscence. That those checks are so
That yeah.
important. You know, it's just crazy. But you know what? A lot of mums again go through this very same thing. Myself, after I had my cesarean, they didn't close my scar up properly, so I had blood and fluid leaking into my abdomen, which made me very, very poorly after birth, and as well as losing 700 milliliters of blood.
Wow.
And no one told me, oh, you had you hemorrhaged. Like no one told me this is why you feel the way you do. No one even checked me after. I went back to the hospital for the surgeons to check to make sure that everything was okay because I knew I was feeling very poorly, and they refused.
Yeah,
So
that's insane. I don't get it. That I don't get. Like even when I got the prolapse, it's like, oh, you're fine. I'm like, what did you check? Like, what was this checking? Like, there was nothing done. They sent me home, and then I come back, and it's like, no, you do have it. I'm like, make up your mind. Like, I went there, and you said I didn't have anything. But it's right. She said that it was a even. I think that the now knowing it's like, yeah, it was a window. It was a scar. I don't know how to pronounce it
by
because
the
I'm
hitters,
yes, exactly. It wasn't complete rupture.
yeah,
It wasn't really calling it a rupture. I think she was trying more to scare me and to make me feel like I was irresponsible for doing all these things. And like she was really like this doctor was really upset at me. At me. She was upset at me for doing I'm like, I'm doing the best I can with what I had, with the notions that I had. And yeah, I don't know. I looking back, I mean, I don't regret anything that I did. And at the same time, there's always a possibility. We can't control everything. There's always this
Yeah.
possibility.
I put up a
So I
post
was
about
okay with
that.
that possibility.
No, most definitely. I put up a post about that on my Instagram page, that I'm being patient with the things that I cannot control. Because I think a lot of the times with women who want to have VBAC, and with people in general,
Yeah.
we get so frustrated when things are not going our way that we just need to slow down, stop, recalibrate our minds, and realize that actually things don't happen all the time that like what we planned it to. Like things don't happen the way we planned it to, and we need to be patient with things. Be patient with our plans, because not everything goes to plan. Sometimes we need to take another course, and that's not part of the plan, but is taking another course. We just have to be patient with it. It's life. It's part of life, and there's nothing we
Yeah,
can do about it.
I think that's the main thing for us as birth professionals, because I'm just starting my journey as a birth professional, as a birth worker. But the one thing that I'm really passionate about is like working with women about their, especially in VBAC, what are your expectations about what's going to happen? Because we really, you can have all the best intentions and do a lot of work and positive thinking, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, it's like the ultimate factor that we don't know. I don't have a magic 8 ball. I cannot tell you how this is going to go. But
Yeah.
regardless of how it happens, and even now looking back with everything that happened, the long labor, the window and the scar, et cetera, my doctor being not having that, not being thoughtful or careful about these things, about checking after, which is really important. I mean, physically, but not about, let's not talk about emotionally. Then I had to go somewhere else to actually, to another doctor for some other reason. I think my GP, and she's like, she seems like you're depressed. I was depressed, and nobody screened me about postpartum depression. So it's so important to do that. But the to manage those expectations about what's going to happen during the birth and also what's going to happen after. But that's another whole conversation about what happens after you have the babies, right?
Definitely. I'm going to bring you on to discuss that too. But I would really, really love you to, take our training so that you could be,
Oh my God, yes. I'm yes, your training is amazing. I need to look into that. And I think that's the next step.
People who've gone through it and who've got the experience. I find for myself that they're the ones who are very dedicated to supporting women who, even if they have a cesarean, they're really invested in their clients, to make sure that
Yeah.
they're, well informed. And I find that with women who have had, uterine ruptures and they're VBAC practitioners, or they've had VBACs or even cesareans, they make sure they fill in the gaps for their clients, because they know
Yeah.
that when they were pregnant, when they were going through their labor, when they were going through the postpartum period, they didn't receive A, B, and C. So they want to make sure that the clients that they have, they receive all the things as well as all the things that they didn't receive during their pregnancies and labor.
I would love to. I have it on my thing, because the one thing that happens is with regular, let's say, put it under the bus, regular or normal childbirth education classes, is that if you focus so much on the vaginal birth, then if you have a cesarean, then I didn't know how am I gonna feel after? What am I gonna take care of? How am I gonna take care of myself? How long does it take to heal? And things like that that are very specific to cesareans. It's not the same.
It's not.
And I was like, I need to know this stuff. Where can I find this information?
Amazing. So, I mean, I want to ask you a quick question before we wrap it up.
Yes.
What what advice would you give to birth professionals who are supporting VBAC mums?
For me, the one thing that helped me the most as I had a birth professional actually help me, because she was the one mentor that I had was a midwife that was also a transpersonal therapist. But that doesn't mean that you need to be a transpersonal therapist and midwife. And I think the best thing that my midwife mentor, transpersonal therapist, did was to listen to me and help me through the emotional there's the emotional journey and the physical journey. So I think that that's the best thing. Like, we want to be positive. We wouldn't want to think about what happened in the past. We want to move forward, but there are things that we need sometimes to heal from
Yeah.
in that journey. And I felt like the thing, like I just told you, like, oh, I'm a failure because I didn't achieve this. How do I, and I always said, like, when people say, I have an aversion towards, it sounds really weird because in the birth world, everybody loves affirmations. And I'm not really a fan of affirmations because if they don't become reality, then they work against you. Like and even if I repeat it a lot, like I trust my body, in the reality, even that I saying it out loud, I was like, I don't really try, like literally listening to your, I mean, that's maybe this is the advice for the mom that is going through the VBAC or the parent. I wasn't really into it. Like, I don't, how am I going to trust my body if it betrayed me? It didn't go past 3 centimeters. Like, I'm saying something that is a lie. So I had to work on how do I trust my body? And I think at the end, I did trust my body because that's what I ended up saying to the lady. Like, I'm going to VBAC. Don't tell me what to do. If I want to moan, if I want to grunt, I'm going to do it because I know this is what I have to do. But I had to get there. And one of the ways that I had to get there was, well, how can I make this affirmation true? And I think that we need to ask hard questions to our clients, just so they know where they're at instead of just putting like sugarcoat things. I don't believe in sugarcoating things. I believe that, okay, let's do the hard work because that's the only way we can grow and we can learn and we can prepare and we can not be attached so much to the outcome of the birth. And I think those are hard conversations that a lot of birth workers don't want to have because we don't want to scare them. But guess what? We're already scared. I was already very scared. I just needed to get through that. To get the courage to do it. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Amazing.
Not a very popular opinion, but that's my 2 cents.
No, and I think you've made a very valid point, and something you made a point that I haven't really thought about because you know, I used affirmations during my pregnancy and labor, and with my mums that I support, you know, I give them affirmations. In fact, not many people know this, but we actually have an affirmation pack of cards that we've created. Okay. And it's very successful, but I've never ever heard this opinion that, you know, sometimes the affirmations can work against you. And now you're saying it, this is something that I'm definitely going to work on because you've just made a very poignant point that, you know, if you are not living that as your truth, if you're not living that, oh, you believe your body's strong and you believe you will have a VBAC, then yes, most definitely it's going to work against you, or it might work against you because, you know, you think, oh my God, well, I should think that my body's strong. And I'm, you know what I'm saying? Some people, they see things in a different way. So it's like, oh, I should really think that my body's strong, but I don't. Like, I'm just horrible and I'm just this. And then maybe that's where the postnatal depression could really kick in, or depression could kick in. And the anxieties can really kick in. And maybe, depending on the affirmation, it could force that mum down the route of, you know, the feeling that she's worthless. And feeling more like a failure, you know, because she's not thinking the way the affirmation is telling her to think. It was very curious. I'm going to really look into this a little bit more.
So I can send you some information. There's a lot of there's some research that says yes, affirmations work, and some no. The research says that it doesn't work when people have negative self beliefs, and that was my case. I had a negative self. No, my body is not strong. I'm weak. I'm a failure. So it's not a cookie cutter thing. It's not a recipe that everybody can follow. It's on a client basis, I would say, parent per parent. And so I think, I'm glad that I just said something that may it's a very unpopular opinion in the birth world. That's what I said. I'm going to say something that is not very popular, but that's the way I work through it. And also, how do I make this true? And what I ended up doing is like, I want to think that my body's strong. So what can I do? It's like, oh, I feel like if I do yoga, and that's what I ended up doing. It's like, I do yoga, I feel strong. Like I do my goddess pose, I do my warrior pose, and I feel like grounded, powerful, goddess, all of this. And I felt like that helped me trust my body more. Like going to repeating it, repeating it. For me, it didn't work. So I had to go and do something to make it live in my bones. You know what I mean? To make it true to me. So yeah, that's just my opinion. But I'm glad that it served to rethink certain things in the card.
No, most definitely, because even with the VBAC practitioner training that Natural VBAC runs, we teach NLP. Like I have a whole NLP course within the VBAC practitioner training, and the only reason why I put that in because that course costs thousands of pounds. Literally, if you're going to take it, it should cost thousands of pounds. But I've added it into the training, is because I know how important it is for mums to eliminate their negative beliefs. I know how important it is for a professional to mirror their clients, to make them feel loved, to make them feel, appreciated, to be listened to, you know what I'm saying, to get over some of the hurdles that they may, have put themselves into. So when you say these things, like it's sparking like more thought for me, because it's just something that I've been working on for a very, very long time, and something that I really feel deeply about, But I want to say thank you to you, because you've come on here and you've given us your time and you've shared your story with us.
Thank you.
I want to ask you to let the listeners know where they can find you.
Sure, they can find me on my Instagram for now at Gabi Pezo, so at GABIPEZO, and I'm there. I do things on birth stories and mental health and laughter yoga and birth, of course, and that's it. Yeah,
amazing. And you're going to be speaking at the VBAC Summit this year as well.
Yes. Yes,
super
I am super excited.
Me too. I can't wait. So much preparations. Oh my God. But I know.
But thank you for everything you do. When I was preparing for my VBAC, I did look a lot into your website and things that you were doing. So it's just inspiring, because you feel less alone in this journey, and it's a very lonely journey sometimes.
It is. It really is. I really appreciate that as well. But okay, well, if anything, we will put a link to this podcast on our Instagram page, and obviously, and we'll link you to the podcast as well.
Yes.
So that people can get in contact with you as well, because this podcast is not about just holding the information for myself. I need more professionals and more mums to reach out to you too, so that they can, have support, because I can't support everyone. There's a million doers out there, guys, a million professionals that need clients, and are waiting for, mums to reach out to them, more importantly. But thank you so much for your time, and we will connect shortly.